This is the Analysis in Chains with Nathan Williams and Neil Kieran.
Welcome to Analysis in Chains by CryptoNews.com, your daily source of all things crypto. Hi, Neil. How's it going this happy weekend?
All's good, Nathan. All's good. It's and been another rough week in crypto. Seems to never end. It seems that all of the good periods last like 2 or 3 days, and all of these bad periods last like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, we'll mop the blood off the floor and then continue on, can keep on hodling, This is good for Bitcoin.
Yeah. Every week there's another article, Bitcoin dropped 20%, but that's a good thing. And
this is good for Bitcoin.
But I still maintain that the main reason why it continues to drop is probably because a hash rate of Bitcoin is still going up. There was a period there when it stopped and started to drop a bit, and that's when we had this rally for Bitcoin. But as long as more and more people are investing in mining, it becomes less profitable, I feel. And if it's less profitable, that means people are selling their newly mined Bitcoin for fiat, and that's what's suppressing price at the moment. It's not plummeting, but I feel that's what makes it harder for it to go to the moon.
We should also not discount the speculative aspects. Everyone was up in dreamland about ETFs recently, and when the SEC was like, not so sure about this, everyone just sort of said, okay, well, we were really hoping on the ETFs. Notwithstanding that ETFs are sort of like the antithesis of what Bitcoin stood for. So, if you're a Bitcoin purist, maybe you were never that excited about ETFs. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I think ETF, does bring out the speculative element. You have to think back, I think it was fall or end of year last year, just before the future contracts came about for Bitcoin. That really did add a lot of speculation into the market. Again, it kind of added the hype of institutional investors rushing into Bitcoin. And I think that really helped to pump up the price near the end of 2017. And I'm sure if an ETF were to be approved, I'm sure Bitcoin would be close to 20,000 today. And I think that people are probably getting a bit too far ahead of themselves. We said this a few times, but I think that because people are kind of down the dumps about ETF, we're seeing Bitcoin, drop a bit, and it's close to its production price. And by production price, what I mean is that it's now at a similar cost to make a Bitcoin is how much it's worth today. So if we were to compare, say, Bitcoin to oil or to even to gold, there has to be a certain price that makes sense to mine gold or oil. And if it drops to a certain price, well, then you drop back on production. And so what we're seeing now is that Bitcoin's at that price where it's just enough to mine, but and if we were to drop any lower, you see like obviously people produce less. But it's not at that price where the speculative side of things is ready to take off and people start making profits. So that's where we're at the moment. And I think that's because, there's not as much speculation or hype in the market at the moment.
We have to remember that large companies move exponentially slower than small companies or individual retail investors. And what we're not seeing is a slowdown of developing projects in the big corporate space. One of the ones that you and I were talking about before we started recording, Neil, was the Bakkt project of big corporates, Microsoft and Starbucks coming in with attempting to compete with Coinbase. And I think that we are going to see increase in corporate investment, and this type of infrastructure needs to be in place before an ETF makes any sense. How can you invest your pension fund or your large scale hedge fund when you don't have some sort of regulated, backed institutional investment exchange, custody management, that sort of thing? It becomes very difficult. These are smaller infrastructure projects that need to be in place before the big prize comes in.
Yeah, I agree, and I think when people look at price and it's falling, they're kind of missing the point as to where the real value is in crypto. And when people look at transactions or hash rates or whatever, that doesn't take into account all of these amazing projects that are happening in the background, all the money that's been invested in the background. And Bakkt, I think, really is a good example, because we're talking about something that really has huge institutional backing. So we have the Intercontinental Exchange, ICE, which is the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, is actually launching Bakkt, and that's huge. That goes to show how big institutional companies are ready to get involved in crypto. But the
Have
thing
you?
is, go on.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but Bitcoin as a price barely budged. I felt on this news, this news is huge, but not many people have really realized how big this is for the infrastructure. And going back to your point on other institutions adopting Bitcoin,
and they're not the only ones, Neil. Have you ever heard of Bison? Or Bison, I guess. It's a similar project operating here in Germany that a few people have told me about. It's being backed by the Stuttgart Börse, so the Stuttgart Stock Exchange. Try to say that 3 times fast. And essentially, it's an app where you can trade and hold cryptocurrencies that's got a big stock exchange backing it and doing custody of that sort of thing. But what's interesting is I've heard that they're expecting German law to be changed in the next few months. Now, I only know what I've heard from other people, but the idea is that they will make it easier to create a small public company, an Aktionsgesellschaft, where you're able to then raise up to 8 million euros worth of funding publicly without having to file a full prospectus. There's lower requirements, and then you can list it on an exchange. And so I think my understanding is the end game is to use these type of exchange-backed crypto exchanges and crypto apps to trade security tokens once the legal infrastructure is available.
Wow. Well,
that would be huge.
It would be, but I think these are the reasons why people need to still be enthusiastic and excited about crypto, because there is so much happening in the background. And we've often said this, but it's just that people kind of seem to miss the point. And when they see Bitcoin price down, oh, that's it. If Bitcoin goes down, that's the end of crypto. Whereas I've been following a new stock on the Toronto Stock Exchange called Galaxy. Galaxy Digital invests in a lot of these companies like Bakkt, and probably maybe have some in various German ones as well, I'm sure. And their stock price is actually going up, at the moment since they launched. And that goes to show that there is money to be made out there. A lot of these institutions that are launching various products are going to be making a lot of money. Like if you look at Binance, we know Binance is making millions and millions per month. We know that Bitmain, that produces a lot of the hardware for mining, is making, I think, I think it's worth over $1 billion, a couple of $1 billion, making millions per month on its products. People are making money in crypto. All of this infrastructure is being built, but the Bitcoin price, unfortunately, is what people get lost in. They're like, oh, it's going down, crypto will never work. I think I saw another report recently saying that Bitcoin is going to drop to $3,000. It's all over, rest in peace, Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, if you really are invested or if you really want to get involved in crypto, you have to look at all of these infrastructure projects happening in the background. And a lot of them making a huge amount of profit. And when we look at what we see in the news in terms of earnings report for like Facebook, Google, Netflix and the like, and they're all recently saying, oh, look, what growth is about to slow. We could be peaking. Well, if you want to get involved in the startup scene, crypto is where the growth is going to be. Even if there's a recession in the next year or two, who cares? Investment in crypto, all these projects need to be built up. And I think things are really going to get huge in the next 2 or 3 years.
I think what the near future efforts are going to be, and we're sort of seeing this with stock exchanges coming in, is not going to be so much a focus on utility tokens, and probably even not a main focus on traditional cryptocurrencies and coins such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, even though that's where they're all going to start. It's going to be with security tokens. That's the near future win. And when I see Stuttgart Börse, and I see the New York Stock Exchange and these big exchanges coming in, what do they have experience in? Securities, trading securities, and evaluating and regulatory compliance for securities, and where tokenization really can make a difference, even though you still have sort of centralized exchanges and this is big corporate. This is big corporate, big Wall Street, big money. It's centralized. But even with that, you have an order of magnitude increase in efficiency when you're able to trade tokenized assets. And so that's why we're seeing a lot of interest in crypto from these type of companies. And this is where I really believe it's going to go. That probably by the end of this year, we're going to see the first trades of security tokens. And what we may see is a move away from this utility token, ICO, token sale, whatever we call it, token generation event, and a move into a more traditional early phase IPO tokenized. And I don't know. I think that it's definitely going to happen. The question is whether we're going to get there by Q4 2018 or early 2019, but it's more of a question of when than a question of if.
So what do you know that I don't know? Because I'm not on board with that.
Really?
Yeah. Because I think I need to be sold more. What do you know? Or what are you seeing on the inside? Because to me, I can see ISOs continue into the future. It's the whole idea of, I can almost be like a venture capitalist myself. We're kind of bringing venture capitalism to the retail space or to retail investors. So why, what's different with what you're thinking about? Because
I'm just as much speculating as you, Neil. However, the people I've been talking to are people that have been analyzing the market. So, for example, I spoke recently at an event hosted by a law firm and an advisory firm, where I'm connected to people that have done a big report, and they were predicting this. I haven't talked to Stuttgart Börse, but I've talked to people who have talked to them, and that's the area they're going into. The big security token exchange project in Berlin is called Neufund, and they're very popular. They're doing like this thing where you would sell an equity token, a tokenized equity, and they would list it on exchanges, and they do the compliance checks and all of that. It's been operating and pushing forward for a while, and they're definitely oversubscribed. But the issue is that you have to go where the big money investors are. And right now, the big money investors are all in the stock exchanges. And so when I see stock exchanges pushing forward for for being involved in a crypto exchange, I'm not seeing that as an end in itself. I'm seeing it as a push toward an end game where they become the main players in trading equity tokenized. But it's sort of a 2 and 2 together thing. It's not that someone came up and told me, "Hey, Nathan, we're totally doing that." No, I'm basically calling what I've heard other people talking about.
Very interesting. I'm skeptical, but
pump the rumor mill.
I'm skeptical, but it doesn't mean I don't want to see it happen. I'm just thinking, maybe you're ahead of yourself, but we'll see.
Well, it's an interesting question as to, why bother making something that'll compete with Coinbase for just a regular crypto exchange. You don't have the market share yet. You don't have a lot of transparency in things like Bitcoin and Ethereum because they are decentralized. So what would be the goal? But if you have a way of pushing forward into what you see next, then it might make sense to invest the time and money to do something big like this and then compete in the area.
Yeah, and I guess, seeing something like Bakkt, that we already spoke about earlier on, I guess in a way does hint towards that direction that you're suggesting. Because
maybe we should get one of them on the show. Maybe they'll probably smack us down and go, "No, we're not doing anything like that." But we don't know.
But at the end of the day, it's like what I find very interesting, and I guess this leads to your point, is that the crypto world isn't the only people, or they are not the only people leading adoption for crypto. When you start to see the Intercontinental Exchange or the Stuttgart Börse get involved, that says a lot. And I think it is important to have competition for the likes of Coinbase, because we do see people get annoyed with Coinbase, and they're starting to become a bit of a kingmaker. And when you look at, say, we're going to add Ethereum Classic to Coinbase, and then all of a sudden that pumps up the price, it kind of does centralize a lot of the elements of crypto. But to have some institutional companies come in, I think does add a bit more spice to the whole world. But it's hard to know how it will play out, but it will be interesting. I think one way of comparing this development is by looking at, say, the electric car industry, where we have Tesla came out. Tesla's almost like Coinbase in a way, really leading the way in terms of electric cars and stuff like that. But now we're in a world where many other car companies that were seen as, old, lethargic, falling behind the times, now have adopted a lot of the similar technologies that are in the Tesla car. To have electric cars. You could jump in a Nissan Leaf today and take your hands off the steering wheel, and it'll help guide you on the motorway. So it has adopted a lot of these technologies that people want on their cars. And so, I think we're seeing a similar thing here, where a lot of institutional companies out there have realized that millennials, who are going to be the next big wave of investors, have lost trust in their institutions. And in order to sort of, win that trust back, they're having to take on board type of crypto technologies that millennials believe in. So it is going to be very, very interesting to see, them take on Coinbase, and maybe it's really going to have to be them that have developed the infrastructure to get into this future that you've talked about.
It remains to be seen, but maybe if we keep on making predictions that are, on both sides of the map, one of us will be right, and by pure covering all of the bases, we'll be able to claim, we saw that coming.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure something will happen, and in a year's time, we can always claim we predicted it.
Anything to announce before we sign off?
Keep on hodling.